Real Supernatural Tales. Episode 4, The Vision. There are moments in life when the veil between what we see and what exists becomes so thin that we can glimpse the other side. Moments when God decides to pull back the curtain of the ordinary and show us what's coming, not to terrify us, not to paralyze us, but to prepare us. This is the story of the night God showed me my own death before it happened. The highway stretched before me like a dark ribbon under the midnight sky. Route 77, just outside the city limits, where the streetlights gave way to nothing but headlights and moon. I was 22 years old, driving home after another exhausting day at the military base. My uniform still carried the smell of diesel and metal. My body ached for sleep. My mind craved rest. I drove a Jeep Lada Niva, an old Soviet beast that rumbled beneath my hands like something alive, something that had seen too many roads and carried too many stories. The dashboard lights cast a dim glow across my face as I navigated the familiar route home. Every curve, every speed bump, every landmark was etched into my memory like a map I could follow with my eyes closed. Ahead, the road dipped slightly where it passed near the old Miller farm. There was a speed bump there, one I'd crossed 1,000 times without thinking. But tonight, something was different. The air felt thick, heavy, like the atmosphere before a storm, when the pressure drops and every living thing goes quiet waiting. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me. Not someone, something bigger, something that knew what was about to unfold. And then it happened. I wasn't dreaming. I wasn't daydreaming. I wasn't experiencing some trick of an exhausted mind. What happened next was a vision, a revelation, and it carried the unmistakable signature of God. In an instant, reality shifted. It was as if someone had turned a dial inside my eyes, bringing into focus something that existed beyond the normal spectrum of sight. Before me, I no longer saw just the highway. I saw a scene playing out with horrifying clarity. I saw my Jeep losing control, the front right wheel assembly shattered in my vision, the axle breaking with a sound like bone snapping. The steering wheel jerked violently to the right, my body thrown against the seatbelt. The vehicle veered off the road onto the shoulder where a hidden embankment waited like a trap, set by fate itself. And then the world began to spin. I watched myself roll. Once, twice, 3 times, 4. The Jeep tumbled through the air in slow motion, a metal coffin performing a deadly ballet. I saw the windows explode outward in crystalline showers of glass, each shard catching the moonlight like a tiny falling star. I saw the hydraulic jack I kept in the back spinning through the interior like a missile, ricocheting off surfaces, threatening to crush my skull with each rotation. I saw the tailgate tear completely off, ripped away by centrifugal force and violent impact. I saw the driver's seat break free from its floor bolts, the metal giving way like paper, and through it all, I saw the seatbelt holding my body in place, the only thing keeping me tethered to life as death spun around me. 6 complete rotations, and then, the final impact against a massive oak tree, the collision that would end the chaos with brutal finality. The vision was so vivid, so real, that I had to blink twice just to remember I was still driving straight down the highway. My hands were shaking on the steering wheel. My heart hammered against my ribs like it was trying to escape. Sweat broke out across my forehead, despite the cool night air. Fatigue, I told myself, trying to rationalize what I'd just experienced. Just tired, seeing things. The words felt hollow even as I thought them, because deep in my chest, in that place where truth lives before it reaches the mind, I knew exactly what had happened. God had shown me, and when God shows you something, it's not for entertainment. It's not random. It's warning. I immediately reduced my speed from 77 miles per hour to 50. My foot found the brake pedal with newfound urgency. I downshifted, feeling the engine's resistance slow the vehicle. My pulse began to match the new rhythm, slower, more controlled, more cautious. I could have pulled over. I could have turned around. I could have waited it out, let whatever was coming pass me by. But like so many of us, I didn't want to fully believe that the supernatural had reached out and touched me so directly. I kept driving, slower now, more alert, but still moving forward toward whatever fate had in store. The Miller Farm speed bump passed beneath my tires without incident. The Niva rumbled over it, steady and strong. Maybe I'd been wrong. Maybe it had just been exhaustion playing tricks. But the vision wouldn't leave me. It replayed behind my eyes like a memory of the future, persistent and insistent. The images burned themselves into my consciousness with the kind of clarity that doesn't fade. I gripped the steering wheel tighter as if holding onto it could hold off what was coming. My military training kicked in automatically, checking mirrors, scanning the road ahead, maintaining awareness of my surroundings. But this wasn't a tactical situation I'd been trained for. This was something else entirely. I spoke to God then, my voice barely a whisper in the darkness of the Jeep's interior. Lord, cover me with your blood. If there's a trap set for me, undo it. If there's danger ahead, reveal it. If this is from you, prepare me for what's coming. With each word, I felt something shift. Not in the physical world, but in that invisible realm where spiritual battles are fought. The oppressive heaviness in the air began to lift slightly, replaced by something else. Not comfort exactly, but presence. The awareness that I wasn't alone. The road ahead curved gently to the left. Under normal circumstances, it was nothing, barely worth noticing. A slight bend that required just the tiniest adjustment of the steering wheel. I'd taken this curve hundreds of times, but tonight, as I approached it, the vision returned with renewed intensity. My hands began to sweat. The fabric of the seatbelt pressed against my shoulder, reminding me that I was strapped in, connected to this moment, bound to whatever was about to unfold. I touched the dashboard, felt the cool plastic beneath my fingertips, solid and real. The curve approached, inevitable as a clock reaching the appointed hour. And then, in the exact moment the road began to bend, the vision became reality. First came the sound, a sharp crack, metallic and final, like a gunshot in the night. The front right wheel assembly, exactly as I'd seen, shattered. The hub broke clean through, the metal fatigued beyond its tolerance. Choosing this precise moment to fail, the steering wheel jerked hard to the right. My arm strained against the sudden force, muscles tensing trying to maintain control. But the physics were already in motion, equations of force and velocity and angle all conspiring toward a predetermined outcome. The Jeep veered onto the shoulder, and there it was, exactly as shown in the vision, the embankment. A drop-off I'd never noticed in all my trips down this road, or maybe had noticed but never from this angle, never at this speed, never with a broken axle turning my vehicle into a projectile. The Niva launched. That's the only word for it. The front end dipped, the rear lifted, and suddenly I was airborne. Gravity temporarily suspended as momentum carried me forward and down. Then the world began to turn. The first roll is so shocking that it seems to happen in silence. Time stretches, pulling like taffy. Each moment extended into an eternity. I heard glass breaking, but it sounded distant, muffled, as if happening in another room. I saw lights spinning, streaks of asphalt and sky alternating like pages flipped too fast. My body understood that it was possible to fly while strapped down. The seatbelt held me with almost human determination, anchoring me to the miracle I didn't yet recognize by name. The driver's seat began to tear free from the floor, the bolts screaming in protest, metal giving way to forces it was never designed to withstand. Second rotation, the hydraulic jack, stored in the back like a forgotten promise, began its deadly orbit. It spun through the interior of the Jeep like a comet, a circular shadow cutting through air, ricocheting off surfaces, shattering what remained of the windows. Glass exploded in slow motion, each fragment catching the moonlight, creating galaxies of crystalline destruction. I saw every piece of broken glass as if recognizing shards of my own life story. Third rotation, the smell of gasoline grew stronger, acrid and sharp. Mixed with it was the strange, sweet plastic odor of hot dashboard material, a smell that reminded me of childhood somehow, of toy cars and model airplanes. My mind expanded like a wide-angle lens, taking in everything with cruel precision. Outside, the world rushed past in a blur. Inside, the Niva performed its violent ballet, and I was the dancer strapped to the stage, the choreographer trying desperately to save the performance. Fourth rotation. Time changed again. Something happened that only those who faced death understand. The clock opened its hands and let time drip slowly. I could see my life, not as a movie of memories, but as meaning itself. Rapid images flashed. My mother praying over breakfast, my hand signing in at the base, a friend laughing at nothing, childhood rain drumming on the roof, the metallic taste of the first time I bit my lip to keep from crying, and above all, the vision, the one that had warned me, now confirming itself. It wasn't irony, it wasn't cruelty, it was purpose and deliverance colliding in the same second. Fifth rotation. The tailgate tore completely free, not metaphorically. I heard the roar of metal disjointing, hinges surrendering, air swallowing the piece whole as if the world said, This no longer belongs to you. The hydraulic jack made another pass, struck what remained of the rear window and disappeared from my field of vision. The driver's seat finally broke completely free from the floor, loose, rattling beneath me. Yet still, the seatbelt held. I was anchored to the miracle, though I didn't fully comprehend it yet. Sixth rotation. There was a new sound, different from the first crack. This was the sound of the spin ending, the announcement that the next movement would be the last. The Jeep landed heavier, as if the ground had risen up reluctantly to meet it. I felt my spine protest, my ribs wanting to scream, my arms begging forgiveness for everything they'd done without realizing how fragile they were. And then, the tree. The impact was the period at the end of the sentence. Not just brutal, but decisive, like a closed fist ending a fight because it finally found its target. The Niva met the oak tree and stopped. The sound was like thunder cut short, long enough to be eternal in the chest, too brief to capture in words. Silence. And in that absolute silence, a presence filled everything. I didn't hear angels singing. I didn't see lights descending from heaven. What I felt was a peace that made no sense. The peace of someone who should be dead but was somehow breathing. There was the smell of glass dust, gasoline, and something softer, as if the air itself was covered with an invisible blanket. I was conscious. My fingers found the seatbelt and felt the fabric still firm, the anchor that had kept me where life exists. I blinked. My eyelid scraped against a grain of glass, and the pain drew a single tear, clean and inevitable. My mouth wanted to give thanks before my mind found the words. God. Just that. God. And the name filled the destroyed Jeep, entered through the torn spaces, touched the dashboard, healed a piece of the fear, aligned a corner of my soul that had been crooked. I tried to move my legs. They hurt, but they responded. I was whole, and there was nothing that justified this except divine intervention. The driver's seat had been torn from the floor. The Jeep had rolled 7 times total and stopped in a violent embrace with a tree. The tailgate was gone. The hydraulic jack had orbited around me like a rogue satellite, and yet I breathed. I spoke. I was here. It was then that my heart understood what the vision had been saying from the beginning. It wasn't an announcement of death. It was an announcement of deliverance. God hadn't shown me to paralyze me with fear. He'd shown me to prepare me, to write in my spirit a command that would make me brake, reduce speed, watch, and when the impact came, to remember that he is greater than any rollover, greater than any tree, greater than any broken axle. Outside, the night continued being night. A dog barked in the distance as if narrating the end of a story no one else witnessed. Inside me, I was in a temple. There were no walls, no pews, no music, only presence, and a gratitude that seemed too large for my body, as if every cell was a tiny thank you repeated 1,000 times. I reached out again, touched the dashboard, felt the emptiness where glass had been, recognized the smell of wounded tree, the bark crushed by impact, an unexpected green perfume rising like botanical incense. It was as if even nature witnessed what God had done, damage contained, life preserved. Carefully, I released the seatbelt. My body protested but obeyed. I crawled through what remained of the interior, over a powder of glass fragments that crunched under my shoes. I put my foot outside, and the earth received me with a firmness I'd never felt before. The cold midnight air, which before had been a silent cloth over everything, now felt like an embrace. The oak tree stood there, enormous and serene, as if it had fulfilled its assigned part. Stop the car, nothing more. No cruelty, no excess, the exact measure required. I looked at the Jeep Lada Niva. I barely recognized it. It was a sculpture of survival, an immediate museum of forces, angles, breaks and bends, and in the middle of all that destruction, a space, my space, preserved. The seatbelt still hung loose, like a fabric tongue pointing to the sky as if saying, I knew. And I knew it hadn't been just a mechanical device. It had been a hand. It had been care. It had been God. I walked slowly to the front of the car, touched the crumpled metal with my fingertips like touching a wounded animal, and I wept. It wasn't panic crying. It was epiphany crying. The tears of someone reborn without ceasing to be who they are. I was 22 years old, but in that dawn, I aged enough to understand what takes many people decades to comprehend. When God reveals, he governs. When God warns, he protects. When God allows the world to spin, he holds the axis. Gradually, my mind began organizing the chaos. Call someone, check my body, think about insurance, the tow truck, reports, the bureaucracy that follows the inexplicable. But before anything else, I knelt down, right there on the shoulder, with the embankment that had started everything still under my left foot, and the tree that had stopped me before my eyes. I knelt. I spoke to God in a voice that was almost wind. Thank you. You showed me. You kept me. You were here. And it was as if heaven answered in the language of those who know how to be silent. A full silence. Absolute. That isn't absence but fulfillment. I stood up with a different posture, not as someone who'd won a fight, but as someone who'd learned a code. A code that said, watch, pray, obey. A code reminding me that intuition can be revelation, that fear can be an invitation to prayer, that visions aren't for the wise to show off, but for children to obey. Later, hours, days, years later, I would tell this story and hear people say, that sounds like déjà vu. And I would smile with the patience only experience gives and say, it wasn't déjà vu. It was God. Because déjà vu is the sensation that we've been there before. What I had was the God of time folding time to give me a chance. It was the Father saying, I see before, and I want you to see too, so you don't perish. And that's not psychological tricks, soap opera premonitions, or superstition. It's revelation. It's grace. It's sovereignty. I was the same soldier, the same 22-year-old man, the same driver who reduced from 77 to 50 miles per hour in an attempt to negotiate with destiny. But I had been marked by deliverance. And after that, every gentle curve in life took on new meaning. Not paranoia, but reverence and intimacy. There are paths we only learn to respect when a tree teaches us to stop. I returned to the car. I picked up a piece of glass, small, translucent, almost a solidified tear, and put it in my pocket. Not to worship the moment, but to remember what God does when He decides it's not yet our time. I also noticed the hydraulic jack, now lying several yards away, silent, exhausted, like a creature that finally lies down. The tailgate rested further ahead, half buried in grass, half shining under the harsh light of a street lamp. It looked like a postmodern painting by an artist who only paints once. Life itself. Dawn advanced. I knew that from then on, technical explanations would emerge. Fatigued materials, G-forces, impact points, chassis behavior. I would listen with interest. Engineering is beautiful. But above all the graphs, there would always be an invisible line, drawn by a hand that doesn't tremble. Providence. While waiting for help, I sat for a moment on the curb. The cold now reminded me I was alive, and I began to weave, inside myself, the narrative I've just told you. The vision before the speed bump near Miller Farm, the attempt to explain it as fatigue or déjà vu, the decision to slow down, the curve, the crack of the front right axle, the shoulder with the embankment, the 6 rolls after the first, the hydraulic jack dancing in orbit, the windows exploding, the tailgate torn off, the driver's seat separating from the floor, and the seatbelt that held my body while God held my life. I don't know if reading this you're in a quiet night or a noisy day. I don't know if you believe without seeing or only believe by seeing. But I know there are moments when heaven decides to lean over earth and whisper in the ear of whoever needs to hear. Watch. I guard you. I show you to deliver you. In that dawn on Route 77, God did that for me. And I, who could have been a news headline, became a testimony instead. When help arrived, when the night yielded, when bureaucracy came with its papers, I signed everything with a new hand, the hand of someone who knows. And since then, when I close my eyes, it's not the rollover that visits me. It's the vision that preceded it, because it's there, in the voice that warns, where the miracle before the miracle lives. The Jeep Lada Niva became memory. The oak tree remained standing. The Miller Farm woke with its own schedules. The speed bump stays in the same place, reminding everyone that the ground also has its rules. And I remain standing, at peace, in debt, a sweet debt, paid with gratitude, obedience, and stories told. Told like this, like someone who turns off the headlights, shuts off the engine, and before entering the house looks up at the sky and says, I saw, you showed me, you delivered me,